Hello everyone, I am Puneet Kumar DG, Assistant Professor, Government First Aid College, Baramasagara. I am discussing the subject Financial Markets and Services in that Module 1 Financial Markets. Today let us discuss the topic Secondary Markets. Before going into the today's session, let us recall what we have discussed in our previous session. In our previous session, we have discussed about merits of the primary market and as well as demerits of the primary market. In the today's session, we are going to discuss about the concept and structure of secondary market. By the end of this session, you are going to able to explain the concept of secondary market and narrate its features. Now let us understand the concept of secondary market. The market where existing securities are traded is referred as secondary market. Secondary market refers to the market where securities are traded after being initially offered to the public in the primary market and after being listed in the stock exchange. Listing means registering of securities over any stock exchanges for the purpose of trading. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಮೊದಲನೇ ಬಾರಿಗೆ ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟೀಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನ ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡಿದ ನಂತರ ಕಂಪನಿನವರು ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟೀಸ್ ನ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಕ್ರೈಬ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾರೋ ಅಂತಹ ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟೀಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಲಿಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಿಸ್ತಾರೆ. ಲಿಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಿಸಿದ ನಂತರವೇ ಆ ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟೀಸ್ ಗಳು ಆ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಟ್ರೇಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಎಲಿಜಿಬಲ್ ಆಗ್ತವೆ. ಸೊ ಆ ರೀತಿಯಾದಂತಹ ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟಿ ಲಿಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟೀಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನ ಟ್ರೇಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಒಂದು ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಗೆ ನಾವು ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಅಂತಂದು ಹೇಳಿ ಕರಿತೇವೆ. ದಟ್ಸ್ ವೈ ದ ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ is also called as a stock market and stock exchanges are the physical representation for the secondary market. That's why the secondary market can also be called as a second-hand market as it is dealing with an existing old securities. Now let us look upon some of the definition on the stock exchanges. The first one, which is given by the Pile. According to Pile, security exchanges are marketplaces where securities that have been listed thereon may be bought and sold for either investment or speculation. According to Pile, is going to give a definition about the security exchanges. He calls security exchanges as a marketplaces. What happens in the market? The basic activity of the market is buying and selling. Yes, here also the basic activities is buying and selling of shares or securities for the purpose of investment or for speculation. Here investment represents for the purpose of long term gain or holding the securities for the long term period to get the market benefits and as well as financial benefits. But speculation is for the purpose of making short term profits. Then another definition which is given by the K.L. Garg. He describes stock exchange as an association of person engaged in buying and selling of stocks, bonds, shares for the public on commission and guided by certain rules and conditions. Here he represents the word association of person. Here association of person represents for the registered members of a stock exchange, that is nothing but a stock brokers. Those stock brokers are engaging in the activity of buying and selling of stocks or any securities for public nothing but for their clients or the investors for the purpose of commission, means who they are going to charge brokerage charges and that is representing the commission and guided by certain rules and conditions. Here the SEBI is having a guiding over the stock exchanges and SEBI is going to issue the various rules and regulations, and stock exchanges is also forming its bylaws, and these registered members of the stock exchanges are adhered for the following of these rules and regulations. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜಿನ ರಿಜಿಸ್ಟರ್ಡ್ ಮೆಂಬರ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹವರು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಬ್ರೋಕರ್ಗಳು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ತಮ್ಮ ಕ್ಲೈಂಟ್ಸಿನ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಶೇರ್ಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನ ಬೈಯಿಂಗ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಸೆಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಖರೀದಿ ಮಾಡೋದು ಮತ್ತು ಮಾರಾಟ ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟೀಸ್ ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಈ ರೀತಿ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ನಡತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ಡ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಗೆ ನಾವೇನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. Now let us have a quick glance on the structure of secondary market. The secondary market can be broadly classified into three categories. The first one is equity market. Here, equity market represents the market for shares, means equity securities. Here, only the equity securities are traded in the equity market, and the equity market can be further classified into two categories. One is industrial securities market and another one is G securities market. Here, industrial securities market represents for the corporate securities, means private sector securities. Securities which are issued by the private sector companies are traded in the industrial securities market. Another segment is G securities market. Here, G-Sec market or G security market represents for government securities. Here, securities which are issued by the governments are going to be traded. Government is going to issue securities to raise funds for its project from the public, and those securities are traded in a G securities market. That the governments such as central government, state government or any other local governments are going to raise funds by issuing the securities. And the next segment of the stock market is derivative market. It is the market for derivative instruments such as options, swaps, and as well as uh, futures and forwards are going to be traded in the derivative market. And the next segment is debt market, and as we all know, this is a market for to raise the debt funds, and here the debt securities like debentures and bonds are traded. This structure of secondary market has already been discussed in the first and second session, and again we have made a quick glance on this structure of secondary market. Now let us look into the features of the secondary market. The first one is, it is a market for existing securities. As we all know, already the issued securities in the primary market are traded in the secondary market. Hence, we can call it as a second-hand market or market for existing securities. Only listed securities are traded. This is a special feature of the secondary market, that the securities after being issued in the primary market, if only they are listed in the any one of the stock exchanges, they are eligible for trading. So that's why here only the listed securities are traded. The third one is, it provides liquidity to the securities. This is the major drawback of the primary market, where there is no liquidity for the securities. That problem is solved in the case of secondary market, because the secondary markets provides liquidity to those securities which have been issued in the primary market. The next one is, prices of securities varies according to the demand and supply economics. Here the share prices in the secondary market are not constant. They are going to vary according to the demand for securities and supply of the securities. The next one is the physically identified through stock exchanges. Here, stock exchanges are going to provide a physical representation to the secondary market. ಈಗ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ಗೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ರೀತಿಯಾದ ಫಿಸಿಕಲ್ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಆದರೆ ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಅನ್ನ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಆಗಿ ಒಂದು ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರಿಬಹುದು. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಇಸ್ ಎ ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್, ಬಾಂಬೆ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಇಸ್ ಎ ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್, ನ್ಯೂಯಾರ್ಕ್ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಇಸ್ ಎ ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್. ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾದ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಅನ್ನು ನಾವು ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ನಾವು ಕರಿಬಹುದಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. Now let us look upon the next feature of the stock market, that is, it is a structured organization operated by the registered members. Here registered members refers to the stock brokers. ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಬ್ರೋಕರ್ದು ಒಂದು ರಿಜಿಸ್ಟರ್ಡ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಆ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಬ್ರೋಕರ್ಸ್ ಇನ ಒಂದು ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ನ ರನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಅವರಲ್ಲೇ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಮೆಂಬರ್ಸ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಗವರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಬಾಡಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಗವರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಬಾಡಿಗೆ ಸೆಬಿಯಿಂದ ಕೂಡ ಮೆಂಬರ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಹಾಗೂ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದನೂ ಕೂಡ ಮೆಂಬರ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಹಾಗೂ ರಿಜಿಸ್ಟರ್ಡ್ ಮೆಂಬರ್ಸ್ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಇವರೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಸೇರಿ ಆ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ಡ್ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ಸ್ ನ ರನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಫೀಚರ್ is security prices are sensitive to internal and external factors in the secondary market. The security prices not only fluctuate because of the demand and supply mechanism, and also it is going to fluctuate through the internal factors of the features of the company, and as well as some of the external factors like political stability or major economic events and etc. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಶೇರ್ ಪ್ರೈಸಸ್ ಶೇರ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಏರಿಳಿತವಾಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಕಾರಣ ಕಂಪನಿಯ ಆಂತರಿಕ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಗಳು ಇರ್ತವೆ, ಸಚ್ ಆಸ್ ಕಂಪನಿಯ ಲಾಭಾಂಶ ಘೋಷಣೆ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಕಂಪನಿಯ ಕೀ ಪರ್ಸನಲ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರ ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ಆಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ಕಂಪನಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಡಿವಿಡೆಂಡ್ ಡಿಕ್ಲೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ಕಂಪನಿಯ ಹೊಸ ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಗಳ ಅನೌನ್ಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮೇಲಾಗಿರ್ಬೋದು. ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಕೂಡ ಶೇರ್ ಪ್ರೈಸಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವ್ಯತ್ಯಾಸ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದ್ರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಬಾಹ್ಯ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಅಂಶಗಳು ಇರ್ತವೆ, ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟರ್ನಲ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಗಳು. ಯಾವುದು ಅಂತನ್ನೋದಾದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದ ಒಂದು ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ಸ್ಟೆಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ರಾಜಕೀಯ ಸ್ಥಿರತೆ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದ್ರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು ಬಹಳ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಆದಂತಹ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಘಟನೆ ನಡೆಯೋದಂತ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾದಂತಹ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಜನರಲ್ ಆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಗಳಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ವೇರಿಯೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ನ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದಾದ್ರೆ, ಈಗ ಕೋವಿಡ್-19 ಒಂದು ಪೀರಿಯಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೀವಿ. ಕೋವಿಡ್-19 ಆದಾಗ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ನಮ್ಮ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಚಟುವಟಿಕೆಗಳು ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಬಂತು. ಈ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಚಟುವಟಿಕೆಗಳು ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಆದಾಗ ಆಟೋಮ್ಯಾಟಿಕಲಿ ಶೇರ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಶೇರ್ ಪ್ರೈಸಸ್ ಗಳು ಕೂಡ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಬಂತು. ಇದು ಒಂದು ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್. ಇದು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟರ್ನಲ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್. ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟರ್ನಲ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಇಂದ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ನಡೀತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ವಿದ್ಯಮಾನದಿಂದ ಶೇರ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಶೇರ್ ಪ್ರೈಸಸ್ ಗಳು ಬೆಲೆ ಏರೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಇಳಿಯೋದು ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತದೆ. Next feature is investment avenue to the investors. The stock market is going to provide an major investment avenue to the all kinds of the investors, that may be the retail investor or to the institutional investors, and also it is providing an opportunity for the speculators. Here investment represents for holding the securities for a longer period of time, and speculation represents by making a short-term profits through the volatility in the stock prices. ಈ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಪ್ರೈಸಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಏರಿಳಿತಗಳಿಂದ ಒಂದು ಸಣ್ಣ ಅವಧಿನಲ್ಲೇ ಒಂದು ಲಾಭವನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಕ್ರಿಯೆಗೆ ನಾವು ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ದೀರ್ಘಾವಧಿಗೆ ಹೂಡಿಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅದರಿಂದ ಬರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಡಿವಿಡೆಂಡ್ ಅಥವಾ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಅಪ್ರಿಸಿಯೇಷನ್ ನ ಪಡೆದುಕೊಳ್ಳುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಕ್ರಿಯೆಗೆ ನಾವು ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ದ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಫೀಚರ್ ಈಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ಸ್ ಬೋತ್ ಕಾರ್ಪೊರೇಟ್ ಬೆನಿಫಿಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಬೆನಿಫಿಟ್ ಟು ದ investors. Here corporate benefit represents the dividends and as well as interest which is earned on the securities, and market appreciation represents the change in the market price of the shares. Now let us summarize the whole session. The secondary market is a market for existing securities or listed securities, and it is also called as security market. And remember, in simple sense we can call it as a second-hand market for securities also. Then there are the three segments we can observe in the secondary market, that is equity segment for equity securities or shares, and then derivative segments for derivative instruments such as futures, options, swaps, and forwards, and as well as a debt market for the debt securities like debentures and as well as the bonds. The next one is the major features of the secondary market are: it is going to provide a liquidity for the securities, the share prices are fluctuating, and it is having a structured organization, and it is sensitive for the internal and as well as the external factors, and it is going to provide an investment opportunity and as well as for the speculation opportunity. These are the major features of the secondary market. For your additional reading, you can find additional sources from these references: Khan M.Y. Indian Financial System, Theory and Practice, Tata McGrail publication; E. Gordon and K. Natarajan, Financial Markets and Services, Himalaya publication; Raman B.S., Financial Markets and Services, Chetna Book House publications. And thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe and also comment with your suggestions. Thank you one and all.